All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Park Township Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Monday, May 5th, 2025. We call the meeting to order. And the next item on our agenda is for the approval of tonight's agenda. So we've got that in front of us. Right?
Correct. I have one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The date at the top, I don't believe it's correct.
Should be June 2nd, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. All right. So have that be one of our amendments for the agenda tonight.
With that change, I would make a motion to accept the agendas as revised.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes for approval of the agenda as modified with tonight's date. Next item on our agenda, approval of the minutes from our May 5th meeting. Got those scores as well. I don't know if anybody has anything. I did not notice anything. No, anybody else has any comments?
I would move to adopt the minutes of the May 5, 2025 ZBA meeting as presented.
Support.
We got a motion to support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries for approval of the May 5th meeting minutes as drafted. Okay, before us tonight we have 5 public hearings. The first of which tonight I do have to recuse myself again because of my association and I know the applicant, so and the project before us, so I'm going to recuse myself like I did last time and turn it over to the vice chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it Ann Weiler? Okay, thank you. Mika, would you like to introduce this item?
So this is a request by Ms. Ann Weiler for a side setback of 10.5 feet where 20 feet are required and a rear setback of 38 feet where 50 feet are required. This is in the R1 zoning district and it is on a non-conforming parcel. Their minimum required size in the zoning district is 2 acres. And this parcel is somewhat less than that. I want to say it's around 1 acre. And they're the 2 requests. They're treated under the same headings within the staff memo, but it is both the side and the rear setback, and they're both subject to section 3870 with the 4 standards.
Thank you. This matter did come before the ZBA at the May 5th meeting. At that time, it was indicated that the board would not take any action because it had to be renoticed to account for 2 variance requests. I would note that the minutes from that meeting that we just approved do indicate that there was one person in attendance at that meeting who spoke in favor of the variance being approved. I would also note for the record that we've received some email correspondence regarding this item, and it appears to be 3 emails. I see the applicant is present. Feel free to sign in and make any comments that you would like the board to consider this evening.
We start. So my name is Josh Bruger. I'm here with Kelly. I am the potential builder for the project and the individual who put together the packet for you. The more I've gotten to know Kelly and having talked to Mika, I'll get it right at some point in time. The more the opportunity to come before you to request a variance has seemed to be a favorable thing. We've got a house that's built on a smaller lot, and it's built very far to one side of the lot. And this house and this lot are now meeting Kelly, who would very much like to add on so that our aging parents can come and live with her. A little bit of a mother-in-law suite concept right off of the living room. The initial look on my part was that this ought to be over on the other side of the garage because there's more room over there. The more I've talked to Kelly, the more I've looked at the property and in particular the house, the more that this makes sense to at least come before you to see if this is an option. The primary reason, honestly, to put it over here is cost. and then the visual appearance from the road. Kelly's let me know that she very much doesn't want her house to look like a giant palatial mansion that extends out. And so the idea is to tuck the addition as much as we can toward the back and toward the right-hand side of the house behind the big fireplace that's there. All of the utilities that go into this house, this is one of the cost factors. If you look at that plan there where the chimney is, and I'm going to call it the back upper right-hand corner of the drawings, the water goes into that location, the electric goes into that location, and the septic comes out of that side. So as far as the addition goes, putting it right where all the utilities already are makes a lot of economic sense for the applicant. And so that's one part of the reason that it's there. The other part of the reason, we're trying to make everything ADA compliant once you're inside the house. So this puts everything on the same level. The garage, if we were to attempt to convert that, it's a 3-step down. And if we were to attempt to add on to the other side, there'd be some additional costs with excavating, redoing the driveway and so forth. So for Kelly, this ended up being the much more economic choice. Between $50,000 and $100,000 were kind of the cost comparison to put it over on the other side of the house. So that's why we landed right here. I'm gonna let Kelly let you know her side as well. So her thoughts.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come before you. Like Josh said, this is a heart project for me, trying to build a living space for my aging mother. She is currently in Florida. She's 80 years old and her husband is not well in health at all. We're hoping that we can get him here before things get too bad. I'm just trying to give her a space that's her own, that she has some privacy, but is still connected to the house so that we are able to help facilitate any needs that they want. And like I said, building this house with very large openings. We have a friend that's an EMT. She suggested trying to build this for my parents to make everything open, including the bathroom area, so that they can get in with wheelchairs or carts or anything that they had to when things progress to that point. I don't want my parents to go to a nursing home, and this is what my mother and I are trying to really facilitate and try to build this family community, so that I can help take care of them.
I'll just add one more too, as Kelly and I were talking before the meeting. Very understanding that, the opinions of the neighbors matter. So if anybody has spoken out against that, we appreciate them having exercised their right to do so. We hope that most of the response has been positive. And then as an effort to be accommodating, one of the realizations that I had and that we had in a conversation was we've got a little bump out on the back that is there. And if you look at the little floor plan, that's to create a 3-foot, 36-inch turnaround in front of the vanity. And the vanity is essentially tucked into that opening. We could very easily flip the bedroom and the bathroom to put that bump out on the inside so that it doesn't extend into that setback. If that's something you guys would like us to do. This was the ideal setup with the bedroom on the inside, but if we needed to flip that to gain about 2 feet in that setback, we'd be happy to do that. And anything else that you guys can think of? I think that's it. All right.
Thank
Good deal.
you.
Yep.
At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing on this application. Is there anyone present who would like to speak on this application? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing at this time. Do any board members have questions for the applicant or the respective builder? Miss Anweiler, is this how the property existed when you purchased it? The outbuilding that's currently on the property was already existing?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then just so I'm clear, the last comment that was made regarding the bump out, if you were to eliminate that, that would be modifying your request to gain 2 additional feet of setback. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
The staff memo has addressed the setback requests together as they are subject to the same standards in the zoning ordinance. I would suggest that we do the same unless someone feels that they have a preference for separating them. We can do that as well.
No, I feel what you propose is a judicious way to handle it.
I think an initial comment from me would be that the proposal to remove the bump out makes the side yard setback requests a little more tolerable. I don't think it was necessarily unreasonable, but eliminating that bump out, I think certainly makes it more reasonable from my perspective.
Yeah, it doesn't make that much difference. I have a question about what is directly next door, like what is the property right next door?
I did submit 2 pictures, and if you were to put them together, that would show you that back corner of what my property looks like. The neighbors directly next to this proposed addition are the ones that did send in an email that they were very excited about this bump out or the build, and they were approval of the variances, which was wonderful. I live in a really great community, and our neighbors were all very supportive. So it's woods, lots of trees.
It's a figure 6 and figure 7 in the memo, and I can pull up the map a second and do some measurements if you like as well.
I'm going to ask you to stay at the podium just for a moment here.
Absolutely.
We did receive one piece of correspondence from a concerned resident expressing some concern that granting the request would result in you encroaching upon their adjoining property. So I'm assuming that that may be the property to the north.
Must be the rear setback.
And that's my guess, since we did have someone here on your east side, right, speaking.
Yes.
So, my question is, from the photographs, and looking at the area, it appears that there are some large trees, there is some screening, but if you were to construct this addition, would you be open to planting a row of arborvitaes or something along the north side of the building, in the event that the person to the north of you were to wish
That
to
would not be a
construct?
problem at all. There are several acres between my rear setback and the person who's living on, which I'm guessing is the rear setback. He would never see this.
And she's wondering is if back here.
Yeah.
Could plant some.
Oh, yes, absolutely not a problem.
And I understand that they may have existing vegetation that provides a screen, but when we're looking at granting something like this, it would be incumbent on your property to provide that screening in case in the future there were to be something different.
That would be perfect.
there.
That would not be an issue.
Okay.
Did anyone want these glossy pictures kind of see?
Oh, larger size.
Good.
Did you want
No.
to look?
Let's go glossy.
The parcel to the north currently, it's a 20-acre wooded parcel. The existing structure there is about 657 feet from the property line. So on the east,
Yeah, that house is full of them.
yeah, that house is much closer, of course. And it is. Gotta get the right button.
And it could be something where additional screening is not required unless the property to the north were to be developed in some other fashion, but
Yeah.
just to understand what your
Absolutely.
thoughts were on that.
There are currently about 70 feet of vegetation between the existing structure and the neighboring structure to the east as well.
To the east, yeah.
I think both houses were built far to the east on each of the lots.
Yeah,
Not mistaken.
Yep.
I think the email references future development. Put in, future development of that piece.
I don't want to speak, I'm gonna speak for you, but I think we'd be fine putting some trees in anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, that would be
Okay.
perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking for a quiet space for my parents that they can come here, afford to be here because of the cost of everything is getting so outrageous. I'm just trying to just create this little nook of heaven for them for as long as they need it. And knowing that myself, I'm going to be getting older in my life. And I would like to be able to move into that section and hopefully have one of my children move in and help take care of me. So that's my vision of this. Yes, I do.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, you can have a seat. We might call you back up again, but you can have a seat for now. If there was to be a motion, it sounds like the side yard setback would be amended to 12.5 feet requested where 20 is required. Based on the removal of the bump out.
I noticed just on one of the drawings, we've got the front corner showing at 11 feet 3. But I just talked to Kelly and we can bump that in basically, if you go to 12 feet, we could make that work. That's what I'm
Fit it
saying.
all within.
For the whole thing, yeah. Yep.
So then we have before us a request for a rear yard setback of 38 feet where 50 is required and a side yard setback of 12 feet where 20 is required.
Does staff have any concerns that we've not addressed?
I do not.
Okay, perhaps what we can do is take a look at the factors and see if we can reach some sort of consensus and then entertain a motion if there is one. Does that sound fair? The first standard under section 3870 is that strict compliance with the zoning ordinance regulating the minimum area, yard setbacks, frontage, height, bulk, density, or other regulation would render conformity with those restrictions of the zoning ordinance unnecessarily burdensome. Staff comments that the positioning of the home on the already small non-conforming lot makes positioning of the addition difficult. There was a comment by staff, and as the applicant noted that there may be room on the west side, although that presents some challenges as well with regard to cost, making it potentially cost prohibitive and impacting the ability to make the addition ADA compliant. Does the board feel that standard 1 can be met with regard to these setback variance requests?
I think we can, in as much as they've attempted to explore as many other options as could be done within a reasonable cost estimate.
I agree. Given the existing configuration of the property, including the fact that there's a pool, obviously that presents some challenges with creating an addition. So I would agree that factor 1 can be met. Factor 2 states that the granting the requested variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as to other property owners in the zoning district. It references looking at a lesser relaxation, which the applicant has offered in this case to amend their request from 10'5" side yard setback to 12' side yard setback. Does the board feel that this factor can be met?
I would agree.
I agree also.
With regard to the third factor, that the plight of the property owner or applicant is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not due to general conditions of the zoning district. Staff notes here that the lot size does not reflect the general conditions of the zoning district, that this is a non-conforming lot. Does the board feel that this factor can be met?
Yes.
Yes, the fact that it's non-conforming to begin with.
And finally, that the practical difficulties alleged are not self-created. Staff notes here that the owner did not take any kind of affirmative action that created the need for the variance, as it pertains to the parcel itself, the size, or the location of the home on the parcel, all of which are presenting the challenge that the applicant is faced with. Does the board feel that this factor can be met?
I do.
I do.
With that, I would entertain a motion if there is one.
I would make a motion that we accept the petitioner's request for a variance.
For both the rear yard of 38 feet and side of 12 feet.
Correct.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and a support. Before we take the vote on that, I just want to be clear, does the motion include any conditions?
Yes, the condition would be the placement of the trees, the arborvitae, to prevent or to present a buffer to the property owners adjacent.
And you support that motion? Okay. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. Okay, your variance has been granted. You're free to stay, you're free to leave.
Spent a lot of time in last.
That was a long meeting, yes, thank you. Thank you for your patience, Les.
Okay, on to next hearing number 2. Mika, can you, I can present, I guess, that this is a rehearing.
Mhm.
A request by D-Sign on behalf of Bauer Blueberries to allow the electronic illuminated changeable letter sign where static signs are permitted for section 38,569 and section 38,575 of the Park Township Code of Ordinances. So we've got the information back. It looks like you included in our packets today the like some supplemental information here. It was like from the applicant.
Yep.
And he's stating this is what they propose to adhere to.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yep. And so you have that supplemental information as well as our comments about it. I would also just note that one of the issues, one of the questions is the zoning district that it's located in. And I did renotice that this month, so there is a public hearing. So I wanted to make sure that that was covered in the evaluation. So even though this was tabled from last month, there is still a hearing for this one.
Okay. So this time if the applicant is here, wants to speak any further about this, please approach. Yeah. Get signed in for us too and
For sure.
say your name for us.
Yeah, Miguel from D-Sign. Alrighty. Yeah, so we just basically try to bullet point all the things that you guys were asking for. We included a website where it changes it over from nits to foot candle, so you guys can see the difference in that. There was also some other things about how often the copy was going to change or the message. We just try to make it reasonable, so 10 seconds, which was something that was brought up in the last meeting. So it also does have I included another portion from an LED source that we have. basically talking about the ambient light sensor that would also automatically change and dim according to the sun exposure. So. Yeah, that's pretty much,
Okay.
I think all,
Yeah, you got, just to ask you a couple questions about
sure.
the supplemental information you got. So in the last two pages that I'm looking at, you've got, looks like two ranges stated for 7,000 nit.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that's for, yeah, that's to, for daytime, and then the 300 nit for night.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
your proposed
yeah,
range?
yep, yeah, that was kind of the range, yeah, so. Yeah, I would basically, it could go up to 10,000 nits, which is the maximum output, of light. But we usually run it at about 70% of that, and then that 3% would be, run at night, so. So then I think I included, the conversions of those, that 70% and that 3%, so.
Yes, did you see that for the?
Yeah.
Posted here? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
You see, staff, you included some additional information for us
Mhm.
on the townships surround us here about what's kind of up against the same thing or what they proposed as.
Very similar. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was very helpful. Thanks. Okay. At this point, I think I'll put it up for public comment. Sorry. Yes, so if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this item, please approach. See no one, I'll close public comment time and open it up to the board here for discussion. We'll say this is pretty helpful to have. What's been provided is real helpful, but it does look, just taking some notes about the ranges provided. It all seems to make sense. From what I'm reading, it looks like it's on base or on par with at least what I saw for the nighttime. Looks like, Cedar Springs and Allendale are really close to doing the same thing for what they're proposing here for illumination levels. In comparison, daytime was a little higher than it looked like what others are doing, but I know you gotta overcome the sun. So is the sensor, yeah, there's the sensor that's provided here for ambient illumination to know what the adjustment levels are gonna be at what time, so. Seems all makes good sense. I know the option is shown here for an 11 o'clock turn off if that comes to be, so I guess I don't know how much we have to say about that, but.
You can set that as a condition.
Okay.
Yeah, I spoke to our attorney about it. He said anytime that you're regulating speech in any way, you always have to be careful with that, but this would be a time and a manner, and as opposed to any kind of restriction on messaging. So yeah, that's something that you could consider, whether that time is appropriate or you would like a different time. I think staff recommended considering more like 9 p.m. But because it gets late and they're not open.
That's the way it true though. We'll be open till 10. What for? That's why I said 11.
Can you approach it? Yeah, sorry. Open it back up for you to make a comment here.
Tom Parker,
Yep.
899 Bay Ridge Drive. I represent Barman Blueberries. So as currently the hours stay 8 to 8, but as we get our alcohol license to be able to produce our alcohol, we'll probably have some things on site. We have a tent, as you see now, that you can drive by, you can use that. So the ordinance is 10 o'clock, no loud music. So we would close at 10, potentially, not every night, obviously, but if we have a karaoke night or whatever, just to generate some more income. So potentially it could be open until 10. We have no desire or want to be open past 10. It's already a lot of hours that I'm there, so. But I don't want to say 9 if we're still gonna, there's potential to be open till 10. I'm just gonna be, forthcoming, and our potential could be open till 10 with our new endeavors that we're taking on. So, I think most things are, like televisions, they're, and get so many light hours out of them. Our goal would to not be utilizing those lights and turn it off at 11 so it'll last longer, because it's not a cheap item that I'm purchasing here. So we would want the longest light that we would get. We would be willing to turn off at 11. There's no need to be on after 11. That would be no problem with us at all.
Okay, thanks for your comment. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Why we got it? Would you be willing to have just depending on what conversations happen here, a shut off of 10 o'clock instead of 11? If that's.
I mean, if that 1 hour is that big a deal, then yeah, I mean, to get the sign, yeah, if that was the stipulation, I mean, it's just, we're close at 10, usually, it gets some, if people are leaving, whatever. Yeah, I would be willing to do 10.
Okay.
Yes.
No, thanks.
It doesn't get dark till it's like 9:30 here in the summertime too, so just keep that in mind as well, so. Yeah.
All right, appreciate that, thanks.
Mhm.
So Mika, just to clarify, do we have 5 items to look at here in order to?
1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's the 5 items. You mean the 5 standards? Yeah, the page prior. Yep. And I don't think that we. One. I counted wrong too, because the table hit 2 pages. I don't think that we did much in the way of updating the comments on this. I don't remember, because it's been a couple weeks, but I think it was mainly the additional information.
Thank you. Yeah, so the standards before us are section 3870. And there are 4 standards here.
I still struggle with factor number 1, that strict compliance renders conformity unnecessarily burdensome, and the hardship aspect of this, that I don't see where the applicant has identified a property characteristic that causes an undue burden. I understand that this use is not the type of use that is generally authorized in the zoning district, but is permitted under the Right to Farm Act. But the GAMPs, the management practices that apply to farm markets, states with regard to signage, these are from the state, that the operator of the farm market must comply with all applicable state and federal regulations for signs. A minimum of 1 roadside sign is allowed pursuant to local sign ordinance setbacks, lighting, height, and size requirements. So that suggests that the state requires the township to allow a roadside sign, but does not require the township to otherwise modify the sign regulations for a farm market. So I'm struggling from a variance perspective to understand what is the practical difficulty presented by this property, and how does that render strict compliance unnecessarily burdensome from a zoning standpoint.
So it sounds like you read three things there for height, lighting, and size. Is that right?
Well, the GAMPs are written kind of generally.
Okay.
States that a minimum of one roadside sign is allowed pursuant to local sign ordinance setbacks, lighting, height, and size requirements. So it does specifically address lighting. I understand from the last meeting that the applicant is trying to reduce the amount of light output as compared to what is currently existing. We did have some discussion about that, so I don't want to overlook that. But from a variance perspective, another factor is that the plate is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not due to a general condition of the zoning district. And again, I have a hard time seeing how we get past that factor. Because there's not a unique circumstance of the property that I can identify.
Is a circumstance that they have a current sign that is just they outdated and well, for the term of just not efficient. And it wants to be replaced. Is that enough, I guess? For the hardship, I don't know, I'm just speaking out loud right now.
I mean, the township authorizes this type of a sign, just not in this zoning district. And
There is one right now, so
One sign,
what sign?
correct.
And that was granted at some point, right?
So the sign, the existing sign, there's not an issue with. It's the movable type sign.
It just happens that this is a new sign, but it's just not. It's electronic.
Yes,
Right.
yep, it's the different type of sign, so it kind of shifts it into a different category as far as regulation goes, because it's the electronic changeable sign as opposed to just a static sign, yeah.
Is there no, sorry if this has already been answered or out there, but do we know the existing dimensions of the sign?
Yeah,
Compared to what the new sign will be?
yes,
Can you share that with us?
for sure. So the existing sign is 4 foot by 8 foot. And the proposed sign that we are asking for is about 100 inches by 38 inches, just to keep it whole numbers, so. So square footage would be a little bit smaller.
Okay, so you got 96 inches by 48 inches right now, and we're gonna go a little longer and a little shorter.
Yep, so.
at the last meeting, the comment was that the current sign of 32 square feet would be, the new sign would be 22.5 square feet. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, so I've got a proposal right here, actually, so it actually is a little bit bigger than I thought, so now that I'm looking at the numbers, it is 50.5 by 96, which is 33.66 square foot. And what we're proposing is 37.8 by 100.8, which is 26.46 square foot.
Okay, one more time, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, I can give this to you if
Okay,
if it's easier.
that'd be great.
Yeah. It was in your packet,
Is it?
yeah,
Either way.
it's in my packet,
Okay.
yes, that's what we're.
Okay.
And as an industry professional in the sign business, I mean, most signs are going to LED, whether it be internally lit or externally lit, signage. So it's just one of those things that I think would be just beneficial for the customer. Just more efficient on lighting, just be able to, spend less time changing the copy if we were to just go the old school with the letters and slide them in and out. So it's just something new that a lot of places are doing. So that's kind of the reason I think we were trying to update it. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally understand.
yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I guess a sign isn't a sign. Yeah, right. I mean, that's what I'm getting out of it. The fact that we're changing it to an LED makes it a whole different category, a
Mhm.
different animal for interpretation of how it applies to things here, but I guess just for the argument, I'm just trying to keep things moving a little bit here, but the square footage is less. The new sign will be less square footage than the old. It will be more well controlled in an illumination level, I guess. I'm just, as it impacts the community, that's kind of what I'm looking at, right?
I thought about the hardship, is that what you're looking for?
Well, I think we are, yes.
So my comments were directed at there being a hardship related to the property itself, not the utilization of the sign. I completely understand the efficiency and not wanting to go out and put the separate letters. I'm not suggesting that there's no hardship. From a zoning standpoint, the hardship is usually tied to a unique condition of the property. So I'm just trying to understand how we might be able to make that work. But I appreciate and you spoke to that at the last meeting and I appreciated that. Thank you.
We can't get there on this first one. Can we move on to the other ones and see if we have challenges there also?
Absolutely.
Circle back to that one.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll help clarify,
That's fine.
bring us back to the first one.
Thank you. I mean, to me, that seems like this one is the potential for passing for me, just because of what I stated about the size, illumination, control that it has, far superior in that ability to do that and not be so overbearing to the community in that regard. So I think that one is a good item that could pass.
I agree with that and I agree that based on, what the applicant is offering and what staff has recommended with regard to the changing of the messages, the timing of the sign turning off and on, I agree that that factor probably be met.
Let's look at the third one, the third standard about being a unique circumstance and not due to general conditions. I think staff comments are appropriate, makes sense.
Very much.
I agree. Can't. Nothing could happen there without a sign. Like we wouldn't know what they do there. There isn't any.
And they are allowed to have a sign. There
Yeah.
currently is a sign.
Yep.
I think this factor, there are two ways to interpret it. One is in alignment with the staff comment that the fact that this is a use that is not generally allowed, but is allowed by right under the Right to Farm Act, creates a unique circumstance on this property. The other way to look at it is my comment earlier was that use is not allowed in the zoning district. And so the hardship is not a circumstance of the property. It is due to the general conditions of the zoning district, but those are two just competing ways to see it.
Yeah, this is definitely got an internal struggle with itself. So,
But it's, we're probably gonna have this is gonna become something that happens more. I don't know how many. Yeah, I think we'll have to probably have this happen again at some point with some other situation with the signage, because it is kind of the way that we're headed with signs. I mean, if you go into a big city right now and you see an LED sign, there's like cars driving off the sign at you and, dragons and they're going, it's a completely different thing than it, was. So
would this be something that another commission is gonna look at some point?
The sign ordinance is on the list. It's relatively high on the list, but I don't have a calendar date for it. Yeah.
For me, it's the zoning district issue. If this was in any, like a commercial zone, we wouldn't be having difficulty.
But now the games that you spoke to this morning was about strictly in the farm tag.
So the Right to Farm Act
So right to
references the GAMPs, which are the management practices that the state requires for a person to take advantage of the protections of the Right to Farm Act. It's be in compliance with those.
yeah.
And there it states that a minimum of one roadside sign is allowed pursuant to local sign ordinance setbacks, lighting, height, and size requirements. In other words, the state is not saying what you can or can't allow. It's just subject to local zoning if there is a zoning ordinance that addresses it. Now, obviously, our zoning ordinance still allows variances, so there's nothing wrong with them seeking the variance. But I just bring up the GAMPs because the state has not taken a position on these signs. The state has not said you must allow an electronic sign, or it's just deferring to the local.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a deferred approval. So I guess in the state of things here, I guess, the state can't. I don't know what to say, the state has no bearing with this, so. Right.
yeah, it's relevant because the use is only allowed under state law. That's why it exists in that location. Otherwise, it would not be allowed under the zoning ordinance. So we have, to Dennis's point, a commercial operation, retail operation in a zoning district where it's not normally allowed. They want the type of sign that would benefit that type of establishment, which would presumably be allowed to some degree if it was in a different zoning district. And that's why we're faced with it, because it's not in a commercial district.
So Mika, if this were a static sign,
Mhm.
again, would we be talking?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
It's the changeable copy.
Yeah.
The new endeavors that you mentioned, I won't ask you to, give us too much detail about that, but is that going to fall under the farm market umbrella as well?
Yeah, it will. It's stuff that we're producing with our own product. So blueberry wine, blueberry cider, and all other things like that. The sign just quickly it's very difficult for us to put, so we're trying to grow, right? We have a large family and just trying to make a living. That sign is very difficult to change what we're doing. Like half the world out here that I live in doesn't know that we do pizzas and they're fantastic. They don't know that we're doing subs right now. They don't know that we're going to be doing hard cider and this. We can't get that out there because it's very difficult to change that sign for my employees. And you're right, the GAMPs strictly say we're allowed to have one sign, and that's what we have. And unfortunately, I'm not infringing anybody's property that I have to show the hardship of why my property's goofy or whatnot. It's just, we're by the rules, we're by here. We just want to change the sign to let people know. So as a family, we can advertise things to make a profit, to stay in business, to stay here in Park Township, to keep farming. So we try to come up with new things. And if you looked at our farm market in the last 10 years, it's gone from maybe 15 years, the little roadside stand to the little market. We marked 3 times. We've expanded that market already because we're growing and we're as big as we're going to get at this point. So it's just the things that we're doing. It's difficult to get out there, let people know that, hey, we have ice cream, we have hot sundaes, we have pizzas, we have this, we have that. You can't change the sign that quickly. And it's very noticeable when I put that on the sign. We always talk about the east facing sign that people are coming back from work. That's the bread and butter sign. You put it on that side, it does well. The other side it's up there and it advertises, but if we put that up there, people come in, like strawberry season's coming. I have all these different things that come, and we're also the different things about us and other areas of farm markets. We're open year round now. We become a year round entity. We plan on only getting that bigger and bigger. So that's a little bit different than someone up the road is. We're the only farm market open year round in Park Township. I believe we're probably the largest farm market in Park Township, and I think we're the second largest landowner in Park Township. So, it's one sign. I can't argue that, and I don't have any hardships about my land. We are in compliance with the law. We're 33 feet, did all by the book. So, we just want to replace it to get the word out there, how we're growing. All the things that we offer as a family here, you can get just down the road in Park Township. It's easier, it's faster, it's efficient, and it's just, I can turn it off. It's better for everyone. It's updated. I don't have a hardship for the land. I'm not going to sit here and try to make something up. We're in compliance. So thank you.
Only saving grace I can come up with is the fact that in our mission and our vision, we talk about the importance of farming in the township and the importance of supporting the agricultural interests in the township. This is something that would assist in preserving that land for agriculture, even though it's it really winds around the mission, but by the same token, it does allow a family to continue in the farming and agricultural sector. So it could be a saving grace.
Thanks, Des. So to me, I think we got a maybe on this third standard. And then the last standard is the practical difficulties are not self-created would be our fourth standard or look at.
standard's really related kind of to the other, and to our decision. It's just,
It is.
Yeah.
can be interpreted two ways
Mhm.
with regard to this property.
I feel like that standard is met. In the sense that. It's not unpermitted action, and. And the difficulties aren't self-created. They're just, like trying to let people know what they're doing, like, I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of being somebody that lives in that neighborhood roughly. And, like he was saying, every time we drive by there, the kids are like, oh, they have this kind of ice cream, or, oh, we can get coffee. We didn't know we could get a cup of coffee there, and and he's just trying, like in that way, it helps. It's helpful to the neighborhood as well to kind of know what's going on there.
Yeah, it certainly brings a good awareness to,
Yeah.
Season with goings on.
Yeah.
I mean, what? The engagement is good.
Yeah, I mean, I like I was saying, as somebody from in the neighborhood, like I only know because my kids ride their bikes there, and then they'll come back and tell me, oh, did you know? We got this, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know they had that. It could definitely will be helpful to bring them into the more modern era while preserving, like Dennis said, their ability to keep doing what they do out there.
I mean, it does seem like a hindrance to only allow this only forever.
Yeah.
For our current state of.
Right.
Could we make it conditional on whatever the sign ordinance would be after review and approval in the future? In other words, would it be a temporary thing?
Might be difficult to allow them to do that, and for that to be the exception.
Mhm.
If it's greater than what becomes the condition, I guess, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
If the sign ordinance is amended in the future and it becomes more open or more accepting of this type of a sign, even if they were granted a variance tonight, they could come back to try to amend that later if it would allow more than what the ZBA would be open to.
right.
If it becomes more restrictive, then no, they can just operate under a variance if a variance was granted.
Right. So I wouldn't say that we're setting a precedence, but I feel like we are.
Mhm.
That's the
By doing this,
that's what I feel like is
it's setting
Big in my
that
head.
standard.
as the answer should be pretty easy, but it's the precedence component.
No, again, I keep coming back to me, just personally, when I look at this, they have a sign that's smaller. The new sign will be smaller than what is there now,
And more informative.
I know, absolutely, yeah. But the restrictions that, or the standards that could be set as an ordinance in the future, yeah, maybe that would be out of compliance. I have no idea. Even though we said, I look at this and my interpretation is like, yeah, it's smaller, this seems to be a good thing, right? knows
gonna-
when they determined the ordinance to actually be.
Yeah.
Get back to our original comments about set of precedents or them operating under variance and anyone else being greater than lesser.
Yeah, they could exclude signs in this zoning district.
Well, that's true too. Would it ever be that this building has to be rezoned to be a commercial setting just around the building itself for this type of business or something?
Yeah, I mean, the Right to Farm Act with the GAMPs is not unlimited as far as the activities that are permitted on the site. So there are limitations on the activities. I don't see that being something that would be. I'd have a hard time seeing that as being a successful rezoning request, given the Planning Commission's expressed desire to see agriculture continue in this area. And one of the things that we talk about a lot when we're evaluating rezoning requests is that when you've rezoned something, you might have a plan in front of you, but you're not bound by that plan, and that rezoning lasts forever. So as soon as commercial were permitted in that area, then any and all type of commercial activity that's permitted under the zoning district would also be permitted there. And although I think the Planning Commission appreciates what this farm is doing, they would not like to see any and all kind of commercial activity there.
If we circle back to the first one again, does anybody have a different perspective after talking through the other ones? And strict compliance with the zoning ordinance, this one here, 3870.
I mean, what if one of the conditions is that this electronic sign is only used for static imagery? Would we look at it any different if let's say the applicant decided, I won't put any changing messages up there, so it's gonna say one thing per day? Is that still changing? I guess.
Yeah, I think the capacity of the sign would mean that would have to still be changing. It couldn't just say, oh, it's not going to be a changing sign anymore. But it could be a condition that you would set, but yeah.
Because even the static, the existing condition of their sign now is a changing sign, it's just manually done. I mean, they could go out there at any moment and change it, right?
Yeah, but there's a different definition when it comes to the changeable messaging.
Okay.
I think to answer your question, based on some of the comments that were made with regard to the other factors, there may be members who feel that factor one could be met.
Yeah, because I'm looking at, I'm just reading the ordinance. Of what it states under section 38-565B, no sign shall have any visible moving components or a moving or changing message, either constantly or at intervals, regardless of whether the motion of change is caused by artificial or physical means, except as permitted.
Or physical means,
Or physical means.
which means my hand putting
Yeah,
letters.
I would think so. So to me, I mean, this photograph that says winter hours is gonna never ever change. That's how I interpret that. I don't know how everybody else interprets that, but that's with that, I was just like, that's why I wanted to bring it up, and I was like, wow, this is.
So that's physical, that's.
I mean, to me, it seems like they want to describe like, just the back of it, illuminated sign, like the gold arches, and it stays there, it's like that,
Yeah,
right? Hmm.
Mr. Chair,
But
I'd like to make a motion that we grant this variance. I believe all four standards can be met in section 38-70. But I'd also like to add, because I'm all about safety and I know one of his employees on the fire department, I would like to see the address on the post of that sign, the address of your property. Yeah, we can do that.
Physical post?
Yes,
Oh, yeah, the building is marked number one.
Yep.
So they.
but it's nice you're driving by because that's a big piece of property.
You want it later or not loaded?
It does.
Yo, guys.
so, Mr. Sir, are you willing to go through the standards or,
I believe we already did that, didn't we?
well? I think the numbers, the standard one, I guess,
Yeah, that was,
is our.
and I think that can be with.
Is your motion including conditions regarding the output and the timing of the?
Yes, what,
Messages.
exactly what it says on all four.
Regulations that we have, but I think that'd be nice to supplement.
Yeah, where does it?
whether the sign goes off at.
Right.
or-
The 10 o'clock, yeah.
Or dims or whatever it's gonna do.
I don't think it necessarily has to go off, but dimming at 10, yes, absolutely. Oh, I was reading that other ordinance, okay.
On page 9,
Yeah.
are some proposed
Yes.
some staff response.
Yeah, page 9, we do have additional staff comments and recommendations that we could look at to help this out. As we do this.
And the applicant did agree to turn off the sign at 10 PM.
That's what I heard.
Can you explain how the ambient light sensor works? What does that do?
So it's just like a photo eye, that you would have, motion sensor. Or light sensor when I've got one on my garage, basically, when the sun starts going down, it turns on. So it'd be very similar to that.
Okay.
But it starts kind of turning down.
Okay,
I don't know how they fully do them.
yeah, I
But
understand.
it's very similar, it automatically will start dimming,
Okay,
to a preset dimming feature, so if you want it to be full blast at night, then, it's just all settings that you can easily program, so.
That's kind of hard to explain, but if you ever go into like a newer house, they have step lights where the sun just starts going down, they get dim, and the darker it gets brighter. This would work on the opposite side, the darker it gets dimmer.
Mr. Cerny, can I clarify the standards, or the conditions? They're on page 9, and just for the sake of your motion to clarify if those are things that you wanted included in your motion or not. So on the first one, they had suggested, 70% of the 10,000 nits and then 3%, which would be, which would be about 650-foot candles and 300 or 28-foot candles. Is that acceptable as part of your,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
And then they had initially proposed 24 hours. With the ambient light sensor, and I think that's kind of combined with the one that's down below, turn sign off at 10 PM. Did you want to include the 10 PM in your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Message changeability in 10-second intervals, include that one as well. And then on the bottom, the no moving messages will appear. Staff, we had included some more specific verbiage that was pulled from other similar ordinances just for clarity. Did you want to include that language or just keep it to no moving messages or neither?
No moving this.
Keep it to the simple no moving messages? Okay, very good.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do we have support?
I have one question, a second, on these, staff comments that we just looked at. One of them talks about 24 hours with it going to 3% at night, and the other one is turning it off, and they're both, so like, which one of those?
Well, what I heard was to turn it off at 10 PM. So correct me if that's not correct.
Okay, when we mentioned that, we said, yes, that was a yes on the 24 hours, but with it changing to 3% at night, so I just wanted to make sure. Those are.
It's a great question.
That was one.
Just for clarity
Yeah.
purposes, because there's the residents across the street, and also for the benefit of the code enforcement officers to understand what the parameters are. It may make sense to have it signed.
We could have it during business hours. Normal business hours, yeah.
For the turn on time.
How about 7 AM? Propose 7 AM because I have people going to work and we get coffee and breakfast burritos. Would 7 AM be too early?
What time do you open?
7 AM?
Yeah, that's,
Then that would,
Mine don't, I don't, some, everyone's normal business hours are different, so that's why I'm saying.
but you're open to the public at 7 AM.
Yeah, guessing something.
mhm.
Then that would coincide with,
I'm just saying our guess.
yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Well, I'll support with the additional staff comments and recommendations being adopted, so I will support the motion.
Okay, good. Do we need any other input? I guess I'm hearing that we've got all standards met with what is written or has been amended by the additional staff comments of the first one a modified portion of the second one to open at 7 a.m., I'm saying. The third item to messages changing at 10-second intervals. Turning off the sign at 10 p.m. and no moving messages. That's kind of what I'm understanding our motion to be.
I had it, the lighting at 650-foot candles and 28-foot candles respectively for night and day. And then changing it 10-second intervals, on at 7 a.m., off at 10 p.m. No moving messages without the additional, just the no moving messages. And then I think also to put the address on the post of the sign as well.
I guess I would like to make some sort of additional comment that I don't know where it goes, but just on this site or the sign size being reduced from its current size. I think it's worthy of noting it, that's all. That's an improvement to the conditions. And I guess one other comment before we take roll call. Is there any discussion like as far as neighborhood impact then this not being an ordinance, is there pushback that can be happening after this? That comes to you, Mika, let's say, for example, you know, nuisance, and then what?
It's been granted, so it would by definition not be considered a nuisance under our standards because it was kind of declared not a nuisance. And then if they didn't like that, then that would be legal action. So I would hope not, but that's the course.
I'm just wondering if there's a way for this to be sort of a partnership in a way with, you know, the advertising that goes out to the neighbors. Is there, you know, sort of a honeymoon period here where we can work with those folks as this gets implemented to say, yeah, we're good, or we don't have any problems with what is happening with illumination levels and such. Or am I way outside of where I should be discussing this at this point?
It makes sense, I mean, you know. Just don't know how to I know what you're trying to say, though.
Yeah, I think along those, my vote is going to be a no, simply because I feel that with electronic signs, LED signs, changeable message is something the township should look at on a broader scale, not on a property by property variance request. I support the business. I will continue to be a customer, and it may make sense for the township to allow this, but for these reasons, rather than this being a piecemeal thing, I think this is more appropriate for the planning commission to take a look at, but not to change anyone's minds. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just indicating that, to your point, there is more to this.
Yes.
Potentially.
No, absolutely. I get that too. Okay. That said, let's take roll call.
Mr. Yes.
Ms. Morgan? No. Mr. Cerny?
Yes.
Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Place?
Yes. Right,
You
variance
made a
is
good decision.
granted.
I think there has to be a no line on the.
Well, it's something that was.
Okay. We're gonna move on to hearing number 3. Mika, can you introduce that?
Yes, indeed. This is a request for an accessory building with a height of 26 feet where 24 is permitted. And also for an accessory building with an area of 3,120 square feet where 2,500 square feet is permitted. As you know, that size variances or the size administrative approval is something that can be granted in the office, but we bring that to you and we have another variance in play as well. This is located in the R1 district. It's on a private drive off of 168th Street, south of Quincy and north of Greenlee. These are two separate requests for the height and the size, both with the 5 standards in 38,491. They're treated though as within the same table here of the memo.
Okay. Is the applicant there that you please approach and state your name and sign in for us?
Yep, Rod Vandenberg, 16,727 Pheasant Trail.
Do you have any more to add to what do you have any more comments for us?
Sure, I just kind of let you know what I want to do with the pole barn and whatnot, just so you can, I guess, see my point of view or whatever. So with the 40 by 60 accessory building, it's going to be used as store. I've got a couple RVs, fishing boat. My kids are into motorsports, got a tractor, mower, whatever. So just to be able to get those out of view of the neighbors. And then by adding the 12 by 60 porch, we more or less want to use it as a family area where we can do like cornhole, grilling, hanging out on rainy days. Where the 24 foot for the peak is permitted, I'd like to do 26 feet with an RV to be able to clean it and stuff like that. If it's inside the 16-foot ceiling, if I can have the extra 2 feet, I can do scissor trusses, which then would allow me to like detail and clean work on my RV in there. Let's see. So with the height, it would match our roof line that we have a lot better than having a flatter roof. We got pretty good peaks right now on our new house that we built last year. And also our vision for my wife and I, kind of like a Tennessee, Kentucky looking farmhouse style deal. And a lot of their buildings have a porch on them. Let's see here. Just to let you know that the pole barn will be the same color as the house. It'd be white with black trim, black roof. And then while we were building our house, my neighbor around the corner on Greenlee, Tom Van Wyk, he was in the process of building a pole barn in 2024. So I stopped in there and looked at his. And after talking to him, and it's the exact same square footage that I'm looking to put up. He's also into RVing and whatnot. Just said that extra headroom is like a game changer when you're trying to do the stuff we're doing. Other than that, I think that's all.
Thank you. We may have questions for
Yeah,
you.
I'm going to sit right here.
Okay, we're going to open up for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience here that would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, we're going to close public comment and open it up to board discussion. One of my questions was going to be, I did see your scissor truss diagram in the drawings you submitted here.
Right.
And from the bearing point up, you got 4+ feet. It's like 4'9" that you can gain in headroom with that move.
Yeah, it's like the motor was right around like 13 feet tall. So
13
gives you enough room to squat out.
Because what is your overhead door size?
14.
It is a 14
Yeah,
foot door.
with a 16-foot sidewall.
Mr. Chair, may I ask Mika a question?
Yeah.
if this only involves size, and you're indicating that could be an administrative approval, is, as it's presented, would that have been approved administratively, the size that's being requested?
It would have, it's a little bit on the higher side. But there was an application that came before the ZBA. It's been within the last few years. It came before twice, actually. And both of those were granted. I think it started at one size and went up to a little bit bigger size. But it is, as he indicated, right around the corner and it's very comparable. So based on that, I would have approved it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as a planning commission member, I'm a little concerned that every time somebody wants a bigger facility, accessory building, that we just can't keep it reined in. And so I want to ask the applicant if the size of the accessory building has to be what you propose, or are you open to reducing it in a way that is more acceptable without having the ordinance amended as much as you're requesting?
Yeah, so I believe the accessory building itself can be 2,500 square feet, so that is the inside of the building, which is allowed per our township ordinance. So really the only thing I'm asking for is the 12 by 60 porch on the outside to be able to use for family stuff. Then obviously then the height for being able to work on RVs and stuff like that in there. So the actual box of the thing that is used for storage is permitted, I believe, by Park Township to have the 2,500 square feet, which it would actually be 40 by 60 would actually be 2,400 square feet inside, and then the additional would be on the porch.
Would you be willing, again, we go back to the overhead door clearance for the height of the building? So, I mean, you roughly got, with the scissor trusses there, the bottom quarter of that thing is about 20 feet from the floor. You got your RV at 13, it gives you about 7 feet up there. Right now, you know, if we pull that down 2 feet, be at 5 feet clearance up there above it working.
Not 6, but
Yeah, no, I know you're patient.
I'm just thinking, as you get older, it's harder to bend over to do something.
You gotta save it, keep the trust.
I'm not gonna lie.
But if it came to it, would you be willing to bring that down 2 feet? I mean, you're so close, but I get your concern.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we're, like I say, with the neighbor doing the exact same height as I did and stuff, it just, after talking to him and he's the same height as me, it's just, you know, just something I'd really want to be able to do.
It's a lot of square footage, but I think the fact that it is a porch that we're looking at as opposed to a walled, additional walled square footage
Okay, close.
makes it less imposing, and also the way that it's proposed to be situated on the property. You would have a sight line essentially through the porch. That's the accurate way of describing that.
Yeah. Yeah, the porch faces the backyard.
I mean, he's correct that the ordinance does allow for the 40 by 60 structure. So while it does add a significant amount of square footage, I think given that it's a porch, it presents, in my opinion, less concern than just simply a larger pool building. But I also acknowledge Dennis's comment that we see larger and larger buildings coming in, which reflects what people want. So obviously we have to temper that too, but I mean, on paper, you see 3,500 square foot home, 3,100 plus square foot building. It's kind of shocks the conscience, but looking at that, with a lot of that being taken up by an open porch, I think we can take that into consideration. And staff is indicating that that size being requested would have been administratively approved had it not been for the height variance. I think I would defer to staff on that.
So we do have two variances we're looking at. They're just combined on our staff comments in a way. We would still want to do that individually, I would think. Or do we want to do, is it possible to do this combined? I guess depends on. Well,
I mean, it's the same factors, so
approach each factor as we go.
yeah.
So I feel like it could be a combined review.
Well, if it's time to entertain a motion, I'll make
Yeah.
a motion so that we can engage in further discussion on this. I would make a motion that the variance requests be approved as presented under the standards set forth in section 38-491, taking into consideration the area and height of the accessory building in relation to the size of the lot. As staff indicated, that this request is for 2.48% of lot coverage. The township has approved an accessory building closer to 3% in the past, that the total lot coverage being requested in this case is in line with previous approvals. Also that this request is compares with other requests that the township has approved with regard to height. The township in 2024 approved an accessory building with a height variance of 2 feet, which is being requested in this case. Given the size of the lot being just shy of 3 acres and the configuration and distance from other properties, I feel that that standard can be met. Next, are the area or height of the accessory building in relation to the principal building on the lot. We're supposed to look at that here. As I've indicated, the home is approximately 3,500 square feet. The proposed accessory building is 3,120 square feet, with the variance square footage being consisting of a covered porch. For that reason, I believe that the area and height being requested are reasonable when compared to the principal building on the lot. We also have to look at the location of the accessory building in relation to other buildings on that lot. And in relation to the principal building, staff indicates that the accessory building would meet all setback requirements, be 75 feet from the home and 100 feet from the residential structure on the adjoining lot. For that reason, I believe that factor can be met. Next, whether the accessory building would affect light and air circulation of any adjoining property. Again, given the distance to the home and the residential structure on the adjoining property, that this would provide for adequate light and air circulation. So this factor would be met. Whether the accessory building would adversely affect the adjoining property or the view from the adjoining property. Again, we've talked about the distance from the lot lines based on the setbacks and the distance from other structures. There's also vegetative screening, being trees between the properties. And so the accessory building, if it is visible from the adjacent property, would be nominally, have a nominal effect on that property. Property to the north is vacant. Property to the east has a residential structure approximately 700 feet to the northwest of the proposed accessory building. And the structure on the lot to the south is also 700 feet away from the proposed accessory building. For all of those reasons, I believe that this factor can be met. I would add, I guess in line with this factor, that the building not adversely affect the adjoining properties, that there be a condition that the building not be used for any commercial enterprises, that it be used truly as a residential accessory structure. And I understand that you didn't have any intention of doing that, but for a future owner potentially.
Ms. Morgan, you had mentioned the open porch a few times. Did you want to include the openness as a condition of the approval or just allow that to continue?
Consistent with the plans that were.
Consistent with the
presented.
plans presented?
Yeah. Because that reflects open on three sides.
Yep, got it.
All right. Sounds like got a motion. I'll support.
I'm sorry.
We have a motion
Yes.
to approve the variance.
Do you need a support? I would support.
You would support. Okay, so we got a motion to support.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, variance is approved. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, could we take a 5-minute comfort break?
We may. Let's do that. Take a quick recess. Thanks, everybody. All right, we're ready. Okay, our meeting is adjourned. Right?
Reconvene.
Reconvene, sorry.
Our crowd is dwindling.
Yeah.
We should serve coffee.
All right, reconvening. Public hearing number 4 is where we're at. Miko, can you introduce that one for us too?
Yes, this is a request for a rear yard setback of 33 feet where 50 feet is required. This is a home in Waukezu Woods or in that general area. And they would like to enclose their deck. So as you know, once you put a roof onto something, it needs to be meeting the set standards of the residential structure. And so that's the request. It is 33 feet from the rear lot line is where the deck is currently being built, and that's what they would like to enclose.
Oh, not an existing deck.
It's currently under construction. Yeah. The deck is compliant. The deck itself, so just with the deck by itself, that meets the setback requirements. What they would like to do though is take the deck and turn it into an enclosed screen room with a roof, and that doesn't meet the requirements as far as setbacks go. Permitted as a deck. Yes.
It's the new deck.
It's going in. I don't know if there was a deck there before. I assume so because there's a slider, but yeah, there was a pre-existing deck, but it's being reconstructed right now. You can see some of the worker guys out there.
Sure.
I gotta take their pictures.
The deck. For me. But,
Correct.
okay.
If the applicant put a roofed gazebo on the deck, would that be in compliance?
I'm gonna say no. We get that type of question from time to time, like, well, what if I did it this way? And you can do a gazebo accessory, it's considered an accessory structure though. And then that would need to be 10 feet away from the primary structure. So you'd have something competing there.
Okay. Thanks, Mika. All right. let's open it. Is the applicant here tonight? If you got anything further to add, or, if you could introduce yourself to us, state your name and sign right here.
Will do, everybody. Rick Nelson. Yeah, so moved here in 2022 with my wife, Maddie. We love the neighborhood, plan to stay here forever. We're just looking to improve our house by adding a screened-in porch on our existing deck. There was a deck there, we replaced it with a newer deck. So we're just looking to add in a screened-in porch off the back there. We love the woods, but they're messy and there's lots of bugs. So we just want to enjoy them a little bit more and the occasional tornado that comes through. This will match and blend in with the house. It's just screened in walls like the previous applicant. So it's not going to be a fully enclosed property, just screened in walls. And the unique nature, which I would have put in the application if I read it better, is we're part of Marigold Woods HOA. And there's common area land between our property and Waukezu. So we're 33 feet from where that common area land starts, and then there's another 38 feet to Waukezu. So if it wasn't for the common area land, we'd be well within the 50 foot requirements there. And the neighborhood design is from the 70s, and the HOA common area land was never used for anything, and now it's next to a busy road, so it's likely not going to be used for anything. We have HOA approval and encouragement. They, thanked us for improving our properties, so they're happy that we're making this move. And the backyard is wooded, and the porch will not impede any public use or my neighbors in any way. It's the same exact footprint as the deck, so nothing got any bigger. We're just adding a porch on top of it. And really the lot layout is we're kind of in a weird triangle corner, kind of up on a hill. So the house itself is going to be difficult to do anything to because the house itself barely meets any of the setback requirements. So really the backyard in this area is the only place we can even really think about adding on. So that's what I got.
Okay. Thank you.
Is the deck that you're adding on the same size as the one that was there before?
I think it's 2 feet deeper. Yeah. But it was approved, like we said.
Okay. We're gonna open up the public comment. If there's anyone that wants to speak towards this item, seeing no one, I'll close the public comment time and open it up for board discussion. What is the depth of your deck right now back to the house from that edge? It's 33 feet, but I'm just kind of wondering what it is to the house. 18 feet.
That's my contractor. Sorry.
Okay. So this is considered a rear yard 50 feet setback situation.
Correct.
So anything within the house right now is 51 then, if that's true. So whatever it is that we're building, like all of it would be completely non-conforming and needing this variance.
Yeah.
There's no wiggle room here.
As far as adding on to the structure, correct, yeah.
Taking the same 10 feet instead of 18 would it be within the setback?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a less.
There's no less
Right.
relaxation. I guess is my point, yeah.
Shifting it to the side, maybe.
When I was reading this before, I was up against the same two first due standards that it looks like the staff was up against and trying to gain traction on approval. That's what we had.
Right, unlike the last application with the accessory building, this one requires us to find the hardship and something due to the unique circumstances of the property. I agree with staff that the existence of the strip owned by the HOA is not, it's unique, but it's not really relevant to the variance request.
Correct. I did find it interesting that the HOA was, you do have a letter from them claiming that you're.
Yeah, we have to get approval for anything that we add to the house. So they approved us and thanked us for, making our property values go up.
How wide is their strip? Do you know?
38 feet.
Can they convey you a little bit of it?
We're currently debating who owns the trees that all fell down, so probably not the best time to do that.
Yeah, really, the four standard is the one I can get behind, but it's hard for me on the first three, quite honestly. The third one was questionable for me, but. I mean, I will agree, it's unique and it is kind of shoehorned in there
Mm-hmm.
with no ability to do much.
Right, I agree. If there was a unique circumstance of the property, it's probably that
Mhm.
more than the existence of the HOA property. Mika, do you know if other properties in this immediate area have lesser rear yard setbacks than the 50, or would this be an outlier if this were to be granted?
I think this would be an outlier, because it's within the relatively recent range. It's not a new development, but it's recent enough that most of those are pretty compliant. I can do a quick double check of the map, but just eyeballing it, they look like they're pretty much all 50-foot. Yeah, right in that window rear setbacks. It seems pretty consistent in the neighborhood. Not a lot of extra space for any of the houses from what I'm seeing.
If I could add, just to the kind of shoehorned nature, our house, you can tell, is pushed further up. We're kind of up on a hill. So our house is shoved further back than most of the other houses. So they had room to be compliant, whereas we're in this kind of weird hill corner area.
For me, I think the way that this was presented, that I'm gonna have a very difficult time finding that the factors are met. I don't know if there would be a way to present this differently to address the configuration and the topography, whether that may change things, I don't know, but currently I agree with the staff report, that it's more likely than not that the factors are not met.
what everybody else says here.
I can't see them meeting the standards. It's,
Unless the HOA was willing to give property, I don't know how you make this work. Quite honestly.
as much as I'd love to approve it, I can't justify it.
It's hard. It's unfortunately. Hmm. Anybody else's compelling argument?
Mika, if they hadn't, just for sake of conversation,
Mhm.
if they had an easement, if the HOA granted them an easement, would we take that into consideration?
That would be a new one. I mean, setbacks are measured from the property line.
Right.
So, as you know, and if they did that, I feel like that might, since the development is planning commission approved, I kind of wonder if there would need to be some approval there. I don't know.
Certainly a complex thing, but I was just curious if that,
No, it's an interesting question.
think of ways to maybe.
Do you know the point of that sliver of HOA property?
It's typical in a lot of developments to have that, some kind of buffer in their,
Streetway?
no, it's not from street widening. I think it's there, it's intended there as part of the development, it was part of the original approval. So a lot of developments will include something like that. So you have space in between, especially a new development. It's kind of a like to create a buffer in between developments, give a sense of space, and then, to have the trees and to have the green space and that sort of thing.
That offers some of the misleading perception, I think, from like the owner or somebody else that's looking at this property.
Right.
So that has a compelling argument, some of the clients you propose that we reject the variance.
Is the chairman making that motion?
That's where I'm heading, unless I hear otherwise from anybody, but it doesn't sound like I have.
I have a question about the enclosing, like, so if it's putting the screen walls around the deck. And I did see in the picture that there's inside and outside deck space. Is there like a lesser type of a variance you could offer with the screening the room in? Like, so that there's like deck around the building, around the room type of a thing to make it, like, what is measured once there's the wall? Is it the wall of the screen room? Or is it the edge of the deck?
From what I hear.
That's, it's like shared, it's connected to the house, then it has to keep that 50-foot setback. If it's going to be separate or done as an accessory type structure, it would have to be 10 feet from the house.
Correct, yeah.
So, and here that would push it even further into rear setback, the deck is 18. And maybe 10 feet from the house is only 8 feet.
Yeah, that 50-foot mark is right in the house right now, so anything.
Okay.
Into that is. Yeah, it's just starting to put roof on it, so susceptible to.
I was just thinking if
Yeah.
the screen room were attached to the house, but smaller, you know, like I've actually like seen, I've had experiences with places that had almost almost like a widow's walk around it, or,
Right.
bringing it in probably for something like that to meet some sort of zoning.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was wondering earlier, if we could shrink that thing.
Yeah, the deck's already there, but what about the screen room? can't really shrink it to any benefit.
Yeah, there's just no.
And,
Be interesting if there was something in the. Since this is your defined parcel. It would be interesting if there was something written that said, so long as the HOA is always preserved, you could take that mark for a setback from the HOA line instead of the property line. Because you always have that buffer, because that's, probably the intended purpose of it is to keep all the trees there, right? So.
I mean, as a practical matter, it makes sense. It just doesn't meet the requirements that we are supposed to strictly apply. I think we all agree that it's a benefit to the home. It's not reasonable in size. It passes the reasonableness test.
It sure does.
That's I think why we're struggling trying to come up with alternatives to offer.
The HOA doesn't allow separate units, so like this would be the only way they'd probably approve it, is if it was attached to the house. Yeah. Yeah. And the porch will be inside of the railing of the deck. We had to add a railing because we raised it up higher. So has a railing now, so that will have a railing around it, so.
It just.
More to add. Yeah, I was just gonna say like you said before, like we're, I think 51 feet, so like we can't touch anything on the back. The side is all trees and my neighbor's right there, so I can't go really to the left side or the north side. And then the south side, I drop off a hill, so I can't really build anywhere else besides the back.
I don't want to encourage him to come back with a different application if we're not open to it, but I don't know if those are things that would change the direction of this discussion, the topography and.
Yeah, the surrounding hardship.
I mean, it's a uniquely shaped parcel. Taking into consideration the topography that he's describing, I still struggle with the fact that all the other properties generally meet that 50-foot setback. So I don't know if it would change it or not, but I agree that as presented, it's not likely to meet the factors.
Well. Much as we don't enjoy that, but I think we have to make a motion. To deny the request for the variance at this point. Seeing that the factors we're up against, like I said, only the last one is something that I can feel like we can be okay with. The rest are just no starters for me. The way it's presented. So I'd like to make a motion to deny the variance. Based on 3 of the 4 standards not being able to do that.
Support.
Yes, or.
Could you specify which of the standards, Mr. Please?
Standards 1, 2, and 3. Or the standards that I believe cannot be met.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, so we've got a motion of support for the denial, so. Take a roll call.
Yes, on the motion.
Yes.
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 Sorry for the denial. Need to move on here for hearing number 5. Mika, can you present that for us?
Yes, this is a request by Cole Van Buren for an accessory building front yard setback of 30 feet where 40 feet is required. This is also in the Wakazu Woods neighborhood. It's on 1384 Edgewood in the R3 single family residence district. This is a corner parcel, which is why the accessory structure has that required front yard setback. And accessory structures aren't able to take advantage of front yard averaging provisions. So that's also part of this request because the request is generally in line with other structures that are on the street. One of the other things that's interesting about that, which I didn't realize until I went out to the property and taking some pictures, is that the street that's on the side of this is a very small gravel street. I didn't know we had any gravel streets in Wakazu, but we do. So there's a paved street on the front of the property, and then along the fence that you see in the picture on, I think it's the east side. On the right side of the picture is a gravel road there. So this is this is a setback, so it's the standards in 3870, which is the 4 standards that you had just looked at in the previous request.
Okay, so Fallen Leaf is the gravel road? You said, right?
Is that the one on the side? Yeah, yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it?
Are you the applicant? Are you? Is there some things you'd like to add to this? Yeah, if you could approach and just state your name and sign in for us.
I don't think there's a pen up here.
Thanks.
Yeah, so my name's Cole Van Buren. I'm the owner of the property. Sign after. So yeah, so we actually got granted a variance to build our house. So we, I don't know, it was 2013, 14 maybe ish when we went to build the house. We got granted the variance to do 30-foot setback because on Fallen Leaf behind us, that property they have, it's a big garage. It's a really big accessory building, but they're 30-foot back from the road as well. So essentially we want to do this. We're going to build another essentially accessory building on our property. And we just want to be able to have it in line with with everyone. If we have to follow the 40-foot, essentially that's going to be like our house, accessory building setback, next building is all of a sudden forward again. So we're just trying to create uniformity with it, essentially. The building is going to match our house with our siding and our stonework on our house. So it's going to be a 1-to-1 match with that. It's going to follow all other procedures. Like I think it's an 18-foot height. It's only be 420 square foot instead of 440. And it's going to be 25 feet back from the back of our property line. So everything else it's going to match. It's just that 10-foot setback we need. Or I guess 30-foot setback instead of 40.
Yeah. Okay. Seeing no one in the audience, I'm going to open and close the public comment. Open up for more discussion. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Is this alignment issue critical to you, or because there's room on the property?
There is room on our property, but since it is unique because it's a corner lot, so we have to follow two front setbacks of 40 feet. The front of our house does that. I mean, it's just a uniformity thing because we do have that fence. So essentially, if we do have to have it 10 foot farther back, it's going to be like our fence, jut in fence, building, jut back out fence. So it's going to look awkward.
Otherwise, you have a 10-foot little space between your fence and the building if you didn't return your fence.
Yeah, so basically go to our fence 10 foot back towards the building, and then the building then 10 foot forward, and then the fence will continue. So it wouldn't create uniformity at all. And it'd look really awkward.
Well, you're asking us to break the law.
Huh?
you know.
Yeah, you're essentially asking us to break the wall for that to happen, so.
Welcome for our house.
Yeah, we get.
So, yeah, we're just trying to match this our house and the building behind us.
Do you access that building from Fallen Leaf?
Yes, yeah, but we got approved by the road commission for a driveway if we need to do one. So yeah, we just have a road to there.
So that's why you couldn't have the fence be contiguous, so you got to return it to access it.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna have
I
a
didn't
garage.
understand
Yeah.
that, so that makes
Yep.
more sense.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, so I guess there would be a garage door there. Yes, sorry. Yep.
Does your neighbor access it the same way?
Yes, they do. Yeah, they have, I think it's like two tall garage doors right there. So maybe it's just one, but it's a pretty big building there. Yeah, I think that's how they access that garage and their main house, I believe.
Did the township grant a variance to the neighboring property?
They said it was grandfathered when I did it. Sorry, I didn't. I thought you were talking. I
Yeah,
apologize.
no, I'll check. Yeah, go ahead, because I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, when we first applied for the variance, they said it was grandfathered because the building's been there so long.
Okay.
That's what it was told us at the time.
Which was the neighboring, was it 1398 to your west or south of you, 334?
It's on Fallen Leaf.
It's this one. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
just
that's
off of
the
Fallen Leaf,
pre-structure.
yep.
Okay. Yeah, let me see. I would know, I just looked up the variance for this property. The averaging ordinance was different in 2014, and so there weren't enough structures around to apply the averaging. So the ZBA essentially applied the averaging provisions to the property in doing the variance for the primary structure.
To his primary structure.
Correct, yep.
Yeah.
I have to agree with the staff comment on the last factor that the practical difficulties are not self-created. Staff concludes that it cannot be said that the alleged practical difficulty for this variance request is not self-created. I agree with that because it's really for an aesthetic. It's a desire to have a better looking property, which I understand, certainly. We take aesthetics into consideration as well, but I don't feel that that rises to the level of a practical difficulty that is not self-created or that strict compliance with the zoning ordinance renders the restrictions to be unnecessarily burdensome. I understand there's a fence line, but that's not relevant, in my opinion, to a setback determination. I like uniformity as well. I'm not suggesting that that's not a valid consideration, and I would probably be looking to do the same thing if it were me in that situation. But when we're looking at the variance requirements, I have a hard time concluding that the practical difficulties, A, that there are practical difficulties, and B, that they're not self-created.
It would limit I guess, as it would be 10 foot farther back into our property. So I guess it would limit our backyard usage. We do have two dogs and I guess they won't really have a running lane as much.
Small leaf terminate into the lake.
It runs into a public access. Mhm. There's like a small strip. There's like, it goes and it jets a little to the right, and that's like a small strip of public access to the lake. But yeah, nothing you can do. You can't like launch a boat, maybe some kayaks you could launch there probably.
It's not a dead end though. It does run into Wakazoo as well.
Yeah, we have
Wakazoo.
crossing walk.
Yeah.
Part of the challenge when you're trying to match a non-conforming building next door is that they wouldn't be allowed to rebuild that building in that location.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of a chicken and an egg situation sometimes as well.
Yeah, I guess this one is kind of, that's similar about with one and four on this one. Half of these, I feel like I can get behind. The other half, no.
Does your driveway for your house also go out on Fallen Leaf?
No, it goes on Edgewood.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion if we're ready to entertain a motion.
I've been hearing one conversation, so I would entertain that.
I would make a motion to deny the variance request for the reason that it does not meet factor 1 or factor 4 under section 38-70.
I'd support that. So we got a motion to support. I guess let's take a roll call on that.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
And I'm a no. No.
Yes. Unfortunately, a variance is not necessary.
I just asked a couple questions about it. So when we first did our house, we basically had these same things here and it got approved then. Is there any reason why this time it didn't? Because it's basically the same reasoning we used as the first time when we actually built our house. So I'm just completely curious. Again, I'm not arguing at all. I just want to know for my own sake is when we built our house, we basically followed almost these exact same steps and the same reasoning for all of it. And that's why we sort of just reissued it like that, just for an accessory building. So just wondering what's different, I guess.
I would have to see how the practical difficulties were described on.
Yep, they basically just says because it was a corner lot that we could use that as a practical difficulty because we're not subject to everybody, our neighbors.
Yeah, so possibly for a primary residence.
Okay.
But then when you're looking to add an accessory structure,
Mhm.
we're looking at, is there a as the property exists today,
Mhm.
is there a practical difficulty that that makes it unnecessarily burdensome?
Okay.
To place it where the ordinance would require you to place it.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I just was checking with that.
Yeah,
So
that's a good question.
yeah,
Your
all right.
question.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Did you have something, Mika?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right, yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good night.
You too. Okay, next item is public comment. And seeing no one, I'm gonna close it. Our next meeting is Monday, July 7th.
I will be out of the state.
Tomorrow will be going as everybody else present.
I'll be here.
Then she'll be here. Mr. Sherry.
I'll be
you're
here.
Kim will be
And
here.
I will be here.
Okay, I will be here as well. So. Maybe 1-7.
Yes, sounds
Is
good.
necessary. Okay. Okay,
It's a tough meeting.
this has been a tough meeting. No joke.
Motion to adjourn?
Let me make one comment first. I'm going to be sending out some information to you I got from MSU Extension on Zoning Board of Appeals training, which is for individual ZBA members. So if any of you are interested in that, would love to give you the opportunity to take that training. It's a new training. I've been through some of their other ones that they've done. They're very good. So I thought that might be helpful. I think we're going to try to do a couple of large group refreshers as well. But this is a very in-depth training. So if you're interested, let me know.
Does that happen here or?
It's an online course, and I think that this one is entirely online. One of theirs is online, and then there's an in-person component. I'm pretty sure that that's entirely online.
Thanks for the information. Okay, we got a motion to adjourn. Support. Can I support that? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, right? Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.